And I'm sitting in my executive producer chair because I was executive producer at the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. She's so amazing. I could never do that. She's so amazing. And as I'm literally in my head saying, she's so amazing, I could never do it. She's so amazing, I could never do it. She turns around and says, don't make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook.
Welcome to She's Interesting, a podcast about business, money, and well-being. I'm your host, Rashel Hariri. I'm an award-winning marketer. I'm a startup consultant, and I'm so excited to be the host and founder of She's Interesting. Today, we have an incredible episode, you guys. I am freaking out. You don't understand what this episode means to me. I have Lisa Bilyeu here with us today. She's calling in from LA, and we are having a chat. Welcome, Lisa.
Oh, what up, girl? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I have so much respect for you, for everything that you've been through, for the way you share your story. And I really want to just take a minute before we get started with the podcast for me to give the background to our guests about how brilliant you are. So, Lisa is an entrepreneur. She's a producer, best-selling author, public speaker, and host. She co-founded the billion-dollar brand Quest Nutrition. You may have heard of it, and is the co-founder and president of Impact Theory Studios, a revolutionary digital-first studio that produces wildly entertaining and original content focusing on themes of confidence and empowerment. Don't we love that so much? Lisa built a global audience, and her content has been viewed over 500 million times. Lisa is amazing. This includes her digital hit series, Women of Impact, a show that features extraordinary guests who share their stories and expertise and help her listeners and the audience build their confidence. Lisa oversees all the in-house development of projects focused on empowering and female-driven content. This includes scripted and unscripted content and publishing, and she oversees all the nonfiction content her production team works on at Impact Theory. I am just so excited to have this powerful woman on the podcast today. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. What a great intro. Thank you. I get always a little blushed when I hear it, but
Yeah,
thanks.
I mean, you deserve all the praise for everything that you've done in your career and in your life. And, before we get into it, I want to start from the early stages of Lisa. So I've read your book and I absolutely love it. You are the queen of radical confidence. And it's a term that deeply resonates with me and with a lot of different people who have followed your journey, who've read your book, which you're now re-releasing with a new chapter. For those who might not be familiar with radical confidence, can you just give us like a quick overview of what does that really mean and its core?
Yeah, absolutely. So people were always looking at me saying, oh my God, I wish I had your confidence. Like I could go and get my dream. I could get the dream job. I could go after the dream guy, like fill in the blank if I had your confidence. And it never felt real. I was like, who are you talking to? Because if you actually heard how negative the voice in my head was, you would never come up to me and say you're confident. And so I had to start to process what is it that people see that they think is confidence. And what I realize is I take action. And so, in order to take action, people perceive that as confidence. But actually, confidence is the byproduct of taking the action. So, you start taking the action, you fall on your face, you get back up, you learn the lesson, you keep falling, you keep getting back up, you keep doing that over and over and over again. And eventually, you get to a point where you're competent. And in the competence is then where the confidence comes. So, I ended up going, okay, I clearly am doing a disservice to women by thinking that I'm confident when I don't feel like it. So what actually is it? Once I started to understand, it actually became a set of tools that I use in order to keep taking action. I was like, oh, that's what it is. So I've kind of coined it radical confidence, which means that you don't feel like you got the confidence, you don't feel good enough, you have tremendous insecurities, but you use a set of tools in order to build your confidence. So that's what radical confidence is to me.
People just assume that you're either born and you're a confident person or you're not. And the way that you lay it out is there's a toolkit that you have. You build on that toolkit, and competence is confidence. And it's something that can be learned over time. It's like a muscle that you have, right? Just like you go to the gym or you like have habits and things that you do during the day that set you up for success. And so you went from being in this traditional household. Your mom was a stay-at-home mom, and your dad had these ideas of, women stay at home. And so that was what was natural to you and the way that you were raised. And then you ended up moving to LA. You ended up meeting Tom. You guys built this beautiful business together. And now you are the woman that represents radical confidence. Can we talk about how you've managed to make such monumental leaps in your life?
Yeah, it really did start with being forced almost to look at my life and ask myself, how did I end up here and why am I here? And that really stemmed from one of the times when my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time. He goes to my very traditional Greek Orthodox dad and asks him for his blessing to marry me. And my dad turned around to him and said no. Now that became one of the fundamental pivots, I think, in my mindset and my life. Because up until that point, I was 22 years old. And up until that point, I'd listened to everything that my dad said. I was daddy's little girl. When I went on the first date with my husband at the time and my boyfriend, he basically asked me, why do I believe in God? And in that moment, the only thing that I can think of was because my dad told me to. So just to give you an idea that I never even questioned my own belief systems. It was the first time ever anyone ever asked me even that question. And so I was like a little embarrassed and ashamed that it wasn't even my own thinking. So that became like the one little flag where I was like, huh, else do I say that I believe in that I've never actually even asked myself? So now you flash forward a year. Tom asks my dad for his blessing. My dad says no. I'm at this pivotal moment. I really love Tom. I want to move to America. And yet my dad doesn't even want me to marry him. And so a few things had to happen there. Number one, I had to be very real with myself. And that realness looks like if nature takes its course, my dad's going to pass away before I do. So what happens now when I'm, let's say, in my 50s and I don't marry Tom because I listened to my dad and my dad's no longer alive? Am I going to be glad that I took somebody else's opinion over my own? And the answer was no. And so that became one of the very first building blocks to, oh, maybe you need to start listening to yourself more. Maybe you need to stop the outside noise dictating how you show up. The second part was really asking them, my dad, why? Why do you think that actually I shouldn't marry Tom? Because I think a lot of the times we'll just shut down and not want to hear anyone else's opinion. But the truth is, sometimes when you can be really open, there's so many lessons that you can learn. So, what I learned with my dad was he said, look, you come from a traditional Greek Orthodox family. He doesn't. He's American. He won't understand your culture. How are you going to bring up your children? Are you going to christen them? He's not even christened. So are you not going to get married in the Greek church? Right. And on and on and on. So once I started to listen, though, of what he actually was worried about, what it did, instead of me blocking him out, I actually learned from it. I was like, oh, maybe there is going to be some problems that I'm not foreseeing that our culture's difference actually may cause. So instead of me just going, well, it can't work, now thank you, Dad, for shining a light on a problem that now me and my husband can actually address. So once we were engaged, I said, babe, it's really important for me that I get married in a Greek church. And so would you mind being christened in order for us to get married in a Greek church? Because also, once we have kids, I want to bring them up Greek Orthodox. Does that sit well with you? Now, I wouldn't have probably had that discussion and thought that far ahead on kids, especially when you're in that romance phase of,
Hmm.
and so like I didn't even think about it. So the truth was my dad's feedback. So while he said no, his feedback was actually very useful. Now, take that idea and extend it to career, friends, and every single aspect. When we started Quest Nutrition, and we're like, we're starting a protein bar company. We had the biggest experts in that industry say, you guys have no idea what you're doing. You don't know anything about protein bars.
Yeah.
Now, just like with my dad, I didn't listen to them, but maybe there's an important message here. And the important message is we actually don't know anything about protein bars. And so they were right. So, okay, what do we need to know about protein bars where everyone else gets stuck and they don't believe that we can make the product work? So that notion really stemmed, like that whole idea of listen to the naysayers, um, just don't act in accordance with what they want. And that message and that idea and that mind frame is, I think, exactly what allowed me to build a successful, happy relationship with my husband for 23 years and be able to build multiple companies because I didn't listen, but you better believe I learned the lesson.
How did you, in the early days when, Tom came to you and said, okay, Lisa, we're putting up the house as collateral, we're starting this business, you in or you out, like, let's do this. And you stepped out from being this housewife and stepped into this manufacturing facility. How did you maintain your focus? How did you, not say, oh my God, I'm actually so scared. We put our house up for this. What if this shit doesn't work? I think that mindset is such an important thing as entrepreneurs because a lot of people don't make it past 0 to 1. And so
Mhm.
how did you feel during that time? What did you say to yourself? How'd you keep going?
Yeah, so that's actually the trickiness to fear. Fear can really hold you back from taking action, but it also can be super freaking powerful. And so, because my house up was for collateral, the old Lisa, the moment I see I'm not good at something and my ego's about to take a dent, I would back off because I want to feel good about myself because I was bullied as a kid. And so, the idea of just trying to feel good about yourself was my North Star. So, every act that I did was about how do I feel good about myself. So you can imagine trying anything new. No, 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 don't want to do that because I'm not going to feel good about myself. But the second you put up your house for collateral, now it actually becomes very real. Lisa, you got a choice. You can actually figure it out or you can listen to your ego. Which one do you choose? And so every time I face a problem, every time I face my own inadequacies and my own lack of skill sets that I had, I just asked myself very transparently, what do I care more about? Saving my house or my ego? And every time I went to saving my house. And so that propelled me, the fear, right? That's the fear that propels me forward, that propelled me to then figure it out. So when I hit hurdles, like I had to get a box of bars to Justin Bieber in Dubai within like
That's right.
48 hours. And so in that moment, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I basically know how to lick a stamp and put it on a box. And so here I am. Someone's told me, hey, look, if we get bars, it was like his cousin was a massive fan of ours at the
Mhm.
early days. So he's like, if you get me the bars, I'm going to be with Justin in Dubai in his hotel and I might be able to get a photo with him. That's like freaking potentially make or break in the business.
Oh, it's
So the
huge.
first thing I do is like, yeah. So I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let me just call up the UPS. I'm sure the UPS guy knows. So I call him up and they're like, yeah, no, Lisa, that can't be done. And I was like, well, what do you mean? It's like, Dubai with their import export rules are just insane and 48 hours, like it's just impossible. Now, in that moment, I feel tremendous imposter syndrome and that, like, but I feel like it can be possible. But who am I to tell the guy that's the expert that works at UPS that it's possible? Surely he knows. In that moment, I realized no one's going to fight for your dreams more than you will, period. And so I could listen to him or I could keep researching. I could keep finding out, is he actually right? Because if he's right, then at least I've done the work and proven, okay, there's no way of doing it. But to just listen to someone blindly doesn't serve me or my goals. So in that moment where not experienced, I've no idea what I'm doing. There's no bloody rule book on how to get, Justin Bieber some protein bars. So I just went on the like, how do I be the student and do my research? So I said, okay, can I speak to your manager, please? Because you always think, okay, I'm actually making this guy's life more difficult by wanting to do something that's hard. So the chances are he probably gets paid minimum wage. He's not going to help me with my problem. Let me speak to your manager. So the manager comes on and he's got the same story. Yeah, no, that can't be possible. So I was like, let me just do my own research. So I just went on Google and I started to speed read like all the like import export rules in Dubai, what I needed to do. If I overpaid, maybe they won't reject it because sometimes you have to pay tax on something. So I'm just going to freaking pay like 3 times as much so it doesn't get rejected. I'm also going to get the number for the UPS in Dubai, and I'm going to try and find a manager there that might be open to receiving or letting me know if I sent the package and gave him the tracking, if he could contact me in LA, even if it's 3 a.m., right? So how do I make this happen? No bullshit. How do I actually make this happen? And that was how. And I eventually did get the bars in Dubai within the 48-hour period. I never got my photo with Justin, which I'm like, I'm still
Justin.
freaking, yeah, I know. I'm still bloody waiting for that one. But you better believe I was damn proud of myself that
Yeah.
I was the type of person that had no idea what I was doing. I was completely fearful. And this housewife from Los Angeles, this Greek woman, figured it the hell out.
Yeah. I love that story because you are at your core a problem solver and you don't take no for an answer. And I think that's such an important quality to have as an entrepreneur because you're going to get so many no's. Like you're going to pitch people, they're going to say, no, we don't like your product. Or in your case, they said, do you guys even know what you're doing? You're creating this bar company. And so what I'm curious to know too is was there a point where, it happens in everyone's journey, right? We're all humans where you thought, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'm starting to rethink the way that we're living. I'm starting to think maybe we should have taken a different path. How did you get over those types of feelings?
Yeah, I have that every single day of my life. I'm like, do I still want this? But
Yeah.
that's an important note to make because I got trapped for 8 years as a stay at home wife and I never once asked myself if I was happy. And so you better believe, at least no joke, every quarter I ask myself, am I still doing something that fills me up? Do I still want to be business partners with my husband? Am I happy? I think happy is transient. So it's not just a one and done, right? It kind of comes and goes. But am I building towards fulfillment? That's very important to me. And so I do ask myself every day, or not every day, but I do ask myself that very often because it's imperative because I never want anyone to ever get stuck again. But for me, it's something what I call emotional sobriety. It's about looking at your emotions and knowing with compassion that sometimes they try to lead you astray. Now, if we can all agree that hangry is a thing where you act out of accordance of who you are just because you're hungry, you can imagine what the rest of your emotions do. And I call it sobriety because I don't know if you drink alcohol, but if you've had a couple of shots of vodka, you may be giggling, maybe you dance on the table, maybe you kiss the bouncer on the way out of the club. It's like, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. That's what emotions do to you. They will intoxicate you with a
True.
feeling that you feel in that moment is so true and so right. But the next day, that doesn't exist anymore. So now all you're left with is the reality of how you acted. And so when I think about how do you keep showing up? How do you keep pushing? How do you win those moments where you feel badly? What the hell am I doing? Like I'm here in a hairnet in a warehouse, and all my other friends are out partying. I go to emotional sobriety. Like how you're feeling right now may lead you to act in a way that doesn't serve you long term. And so, what is it that I want long term? I identify your mission, identify the goals that lead to the mission, and then be so clear on them that your actions will always lead you one step towards that goal. And if it doesn't, then you've just got to get your emotions in check, or you just know right now, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I need to walk away. I shouldn't have an emotional response. So I've really, really worked on my emotional sobriety with that. So like date night was one of those things where it was, maybe 2 months or 3 months I hadn't gone on a date with my husband. We were just grinding so hard. And eventually we go on a date and I'm like, I'm so excited. I've got this really sexy dress on. I'm in my like smoking hot stilettos. I feel really good about myself. Right? I just said, I've
Yeah.
spent 3 months in a freaking hairnet. So you better believe I feel amazing right now on date night. And my husband's dressed up. He looks just so handsome. And we're in our driveway and he goes to back out and his phone rings. And that ring is our production facility saying, Tom, we need you. We have a problem. And
Oh
it's
God.
Saturday night.
Yeah.
So we drive there and he's like, I'm so sorry, babe. But because I was all dressed like food grade, you have to have like certain dress code. You can't wear stilettos on the
Yeah.
production floor. So I had to wait in the car. So he's like, I'm so sorry, babe. You're going to have to wait in the car. Let me go figure it out. And then I'll come back to you. So I'm sitting in the car. 30 minutes go by. An hour goes by. An hour and a half goes by. And I'm getting fuming. In that moment, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I'm sitting here in this beautiful dress. I haven't seen my husband basically, had any romantic, moments with him in ages. And he's freaking working. And I start getting mad at him. And my emotions are ratcheting up, ratcheting up, ratcheting up. And at that point, I'm like, what the hell is all the purpose of trying to build a company if I don't even get to see my husband? In that moment, if I let my emotions run wild, I would have told my husband, let's stop doing this business. I just want to be with you. But I understand that emotions will lead you astray. So what I did is I took a pause, I took a deep breath, and I started to think through things. And the think through things was, do I think my husband would rather have his head under a manufacturing machine with oil dripping on him than be with his sexy wife out for dinner? No. So why am I getting mad at him? He is actually showing up every day and in this moment to hold to his promise that he made to me, that he would work damn hard in order to provide and build a company that was successful. So he's actually staying true to what he promised me. I wouldn't have been able to see that if I hadn't have got emotional sobriety. So the fact that I was able to get the emotional sobriety, I was able to get back in line of what our mission was, that allowed us to keep going. And then the company went from zero to $1 billion within 5 years. But those are the little things that people don't think through. in those small, little incremental moments that can change the entire trajectory of where your company goes.
One thing that I like about your story as well is you're talking about the fact that you not only detached yourself from the situation and your emotions, but then you are also thinking about, well, we have a common goal. We have a mission that we're working on.
Mm,
He has to do his job right now. He's not in this moment. He has to be the boss, not the husband, because that's what is required from him in this moment. And sometimes it blends into your personal life. And especially when you're working with your partner and your husband, how did you guys maintain a positive relationship with each other? And how did you ensure that, if you had arguments about work, they stayed at work and that you didn't bring them home?
Yeah, this was really difficult for me. It was actually very easy for him. But for me, I kind of think of him as two people, whereas he thinks of me as one. He's like, yeah, you're my wife that I build my business with. And I'm like, I cannot do that. I need to be like, he's my husband. And now it's just like, it's all sweet, all cuddles, all nice. And then he's my business partner, which means that he comes to me harsh. He's a very powerful, dominant man. So, like, being able to embrace the alpha, I have to present myself in a different way. I have to really embody my masculine side, which I love, but I also love embodying my feminine side when I'm with
Hmm.
him in a personal. So the fact that he doesn't do that and I do became very tricky because he didn't understand me. So I was like, okay, babe, like he would come into the room. Let's say I'm off work and I finish and I'm like, okay, I've gone in from work mode to now personal mode. He's always on. So he would walk into the bedroom as I'm just like in my chill mode, I'm off work, and he'd be like, okay, and he'd bring me a problem. And I'm like, I can't do that. And he's just like, well, what do you mean? Like, this is our life. And I'm like, it doesn't work for me. So let's come up with a strategy, knowing the goal. The goal is that he can be himself because he shouldn't have to worry about if he's on all the time. I don't want to diminish that. I don't want, there's no right or wrong. It's not like he's wrong and I'm right. So knowing the facts about us, we basically write those out and then say, okay, knowing that, knowing what the goal is, what strategy are we going to test and try to get there? It's like building a business, right? It's like, I want to sell X amount of protein bars. What are you going to do and test to see if it works? So I'm going to put a post on Facebook and see if it works. I'm going to try this YouTube thing, see if that works. And so you have a strategy that aligns with your goal. So that's what we do in our personal life. So what I came up with was, all right, babe, I'm not asking you to think about it, but I need to signal you when I'm in comfort mode, don't disturb me with work. And because we work from our house, the clothing thing didn't work. So I was like, well, if I'm in my pajamas, but no, sometimes I actually work in my pajamas. So that doesn't actually
Same.
help. So I came up with the idea. I don't know if you've ever been to like a Brazilian restaurant before
Yeah.
where they bring you like those big sticks of meat.
Oh, yeah.
On the table, they've got that thing that's like meat, no meat. And
Mm.
so they know they don't bother you. If you put no meat, they don't come up to you. But if you put meat, they actually come up to you and offer you all these different types. So I was like, what if that was like the equivalent of I'm at work, I'm at work.
Love
So
that.
I like look around the room and I'm like, okay, this is normally the room that I will be relaxing and working in. So I'm looking around and I'm like, oh, I've got a lamp. So I was like, babe, when the lamp is on, it means I'm in chill time. When the lamp isn't on, it means that you can bother me with work. Do you agree to that strategy? And he's like, yeah, I agree. So the very next time I'm in relaxing mode, I put the light on. He walks in the door. He's like, hey, babe. And he sees the light. He's like, love you. And then he walks back out and he
That
like
is a
closes the
great
door.
system.
Yeah. So that's like how we deal with it on like a day-to-day type thing. On the bigger scope of things, when you're working with your partner, whether you like it or not, you need hierarchy. There is can only be one CEO. If you're both a CEO, if you're both CEOs, if you both have the same skill set, one of you is obsolete. And so me and Tom actually have complementary skill sets. So we already know that about ourselves. So there was never an ego for me to be like, no, you should be CEO. And I think that sometimes when it comes to business or even in now gender relationships where like, people are taking on different roles, I still believe there can only be one leader and one follower. Now, the problem is that people perceive the word follower as a negative, as weak. But I actually don't think so. I think there's tremendous strength in saying, I know who's better for this role. My husband is better for that role. I don't want to deal with legal stuff. I still have to deal with contracts, but he deals with most of it. That's how I want it. That makes sense for him and our skill sets. So I'm very comfortable as a freaking powerful, dominant woman saying, yeah, my husband is the right person for that job. And in our relationship, think about a dance. If you tango and you've got two leaders, you step on each other's feet.
Right.
right? So you can only have one leader and one follower, but it doesn't make you a worse dancer. So in our relationship, I want my husband to lead, and I am very content and love the idea of following because I'm so aware of myself. I'm aware of what I can bring to the table. I think my skill sets are tremendous. And it's, did you ever read Rocket Fuel?
No, no, I haven't read it yet.
Okay, it's a great book. If you're ever working with your partner, it is a great analogy because one of you is going to be the visionary, the big shiny object, the thing that everybody loves, the Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
But behind Steve Jobs is the person that actually gets it done. And so when you think about the rocket is the big, beautiful thing that everybody stares at, right? When there's a rocket in space, you just stare looking at the rocket in awe. But if the rocket didn't have fuel, it's just an object and it doesn't go anywhere. So the fuel is exactly what propels the rocket. But no one sits there and go, oh my God, that fuel, that beautiful fuel.
There's a few things that you said there that I want to just re-emphasize to the listeners. So, number one, be understanding your own skill set and not having an ego in your relationship. I can't even name the amount of times my husband and I have been at dinner with other couples or talking to other couples, and you can see this like tug of war of who's like trying to be more dominant in that situation or in the relationship. And it's like, just know what you're good at and lean into what you're good at. And that's what creates a positive environment in your relationship. That was one. Another piece is the way that you talked about problem solving with communication. And this is something that I work on with my husband because I have ADHD. And if
Mm.
I'm in my zone and he interrupts me, I'm like, I will murder you. And so what we've learned is I had my system where I'm like, when the door to my office is closed, no bueno. Do not come in here. Do not knock. Like, do not, pass go, collect your 200. Don't stop here.
Yeah.
And so now he's realized, okay, when the door is shut, she's in her zone, she's in her flow state. I will not interrupt this woman because she will murder me. But when the door is open, come in anytime, ask me questions. We can strategize, we can talk about work, totally open to it. And so I love that you are clearly articulating the tactics that you've used in your relationship. Clearly, you're in a very well balanced, beautiful, loving relationship. Let's dig into the journey for you to get to this place because you actually were with a man who did not treat you well. You were together for 4 years. He had some things for himself to work on, maybe more than a few things. But let's talk about this chapter in your book. What made you go back and say, no, 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 I need to touch on toxic relationships and make sure the listeners and the readers have a takeaway from this chapter?
Yeah, thank you. It really was something that I can't believe I missed the first time. And look, I'm the learner, so it's like cool, great. I've learned that this was a moment that I should have included this. And when I say I should have, is because what I've realized in being around having the privilege to be around so many incredible women, is I started to realize women who were tremendously successful, like tremendously, still have wounds over toxic relationships. And what I realized was if you didn't leave that relationship, who would you be? And nothing can actually be more eroding to your confidence than being with someone that diminishes your dreams, your desires, who you are as a person on the daily. And the best analogy that I love when I think about it visually is that little bit of water that drops on the rock, right? Water in and of itself isn't bad, but when it happens over time, slowly, repeatedly. It's just like that's what it's like when you're with someone that can be manipulative, that starts to erode you, that starts to misshape you, and eventually that drip on that rock does reshape the rock. Think about that as a personality. When you're with someone that does that to you day in and day out, you end up being a shape that you don't no longer recognize. And if I hadn't have broken out of that relationship, I literally wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have, sorry, taken a year of my life to identify what's my value system, what do I care about, what are my non-negotiables, how do I want to show up every day, build my confidence over time in order to be the person that when I met Tom, I could very confidently say, these are my non-negotiables. This is what I value in life. And then be able to be extremely open about what I was looking for instead of molding myself into somebody else. And when I think about my life, when you see me on camera now, what I do, writing a book, having a podcast, none of that. Literally none of that would have existed if I had stayed with my ex-boyfriend. And that was one of the things that I'm like, wow, the amount of women that are sadly in these types of relationships where they've either given up on life, they've accepted that to be just fact and that there's no other way around it. Or they even don't even recognize that that is happening to them, and they don't understand why they can't build their confidence. Because ultimately, when you're with a healthy person, they're the wind beneath your wings. They're the one that helps elevate you. They're not there to do it for you, but they can help elevate you for sure. They're like, no, baby, I believe in you. They just give you that extra little oomph. But now, when you're with someone that is the opposite, they're like that anchor that's tied around your ankle that actually just drags you into the deep, dark ocean that eventually, you don't have a last breath and you end up drowning. So when I think about that and I think about how much that impacts a female's confidence, it's just it was my duty to make sure that I added it in order for people to really be able to then build their confidence in any area of their life.
As you were going through this journey of changing your life and transforming, and now you have impact theory and women of impact, and you're interviewing all these incredible people, and you yourself are an incredible person. What is the one thing that has stood out to you and impacted your life the most today? If you were to think back and say there was this one piece of advice I received in an interview that made the light bulbs all go off, is there something that stands out to you?
Yes, there's two things that actually, one was the thing I wish I'd said earlier, where if you're going through hard times, how do you keep going through it? It was an interview actually that my husband did with Nastia Lucan, and she's a gymnast. And when she was younger, I mean, like gold medalist, everything, like extremely accomplished. And she's telling the story about how when she was younger, she just wants to play with her friends and she loves what she was doing, but every so often, it's like she's failing, she's doing badly, and then she looks out the window and she sees her friends play. And she said that her mum told her, you can quit at any time, just not on a bad day. That hit me so hard because on those bad days, we feel badly about ourselves. So that's why we want to quit. And so that piece of advice has stuck with me through everything, through arguments with my husband, through building Quest, through building Impact, like every single thing. Every time that I'm really like, this freaking sucks. I hate it. I hate dealing with legal. I hate dealing like I literally want to rip my hair out and I'm exhausted. I'm wondering why. And I'm like, I'm just done. I'm like, oh no, you can't be done today, Lisa. You can be done on a day that you feel amazing, that your content's doing great, that the business is on fire, everyone's happy. Then, if you hate it, then you can quit. So that was one thing that really hit me. The other thing is, I don't know if you know who Lisa Nichols is, but she's an incredible motivational speaker. And one time, again, actually, my husband was interviewing her, so this wasn't actually even me, but these were the pinnacle moments of my mindset going from fixed to growth. And that is, I think, why these ones really hit me so much because it was early days of my own life. But so Lisa Nichols is just incredible. And she's on stage and she's with my husband and they're doing this interview. And Lisa, I mean, she's like, everyone in the audience is in tears because she's a powerhouse. And I'm sitting there very insecure. I've never been on camera. So I'm just like, I'm behind the scenes. And I'm sitting in my executive producer chair because I was executive producer at the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. She's so amazing. I could never do that. She's so amazing. And as I'm literally in my head saying, she's so amazing, I could never do it. She's so amazing, I could never do it. She turns around and says, don't make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook.
Wow.
Don't make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook. And because that's literally what I was doing in real time. I was saying she was amazing. So I was making her extraordinary so that I didn't have to try. What I realized is we compare ourselves a lot to other people. But the truth is, when we do compare ourselves, we don't do it apples to apples. And actually, if you dig deep, is I was comparing her ending to my beginning. She'd put in like 15 years of public speaking, understanding women, understanding how to speak and how to actually command a stage. And so actually, I feel a little cheeky saying I should be as good as her. I've put in the work.
That's right.
So now every time, right? Like think about the things that you do. If a newbie comes along, well, no, you bloody hope they're not as good as you because you've been freaking busting your ass
That's
years and
right.
years and years to get as good as you are to be the person you are today. And so every time now, I like that made a massive shift to me to look at incredible people and be like, how do I get there? instead of seeing someone incredible and be like, oh, I can't do that. So those two things were the first things that came to immediate mind that have shaped my life. And these two pieces of things that I heard, I mean, it's like 10 years ago or something like that, that those
Mhm.
pieces of advice I heard. It just was the right moment for me to snap me out of what I was in order to help me become the person that you now see today.
That's beautifully said because oftentimes when the imposter syndrome creeps in or we start this comparison game with other people, you're actually comparing your journey, let's say as an entrepreneur, your early days to someone 5 years ahead. And so it's you're never going to win in that way. You're never as an individual, you're never going to grow if you're constantly comparing yourself to someone who is years ahead of you. I mean, also I think in general just comparison is the thief of joy. We all know this. So just don't compare yourself at all. Compare yourself with your own progress. How have I improved in the last month? How have I changed my life in the last 6 months? How have I learn to contain my emotions and be more detached from outcomes. That's the best way for us all to grow and to develop. And so, this is why your message really resonates with me because, as someone who's building She's Interesting and building this network for women entrepreneurs, I need to look deep and be like, what's my intuition telling me? What should I be doing for women? What type of stories bring me to life? And then I need to tell those stories so that more people can be empowered and grow their businesses and live their best life. So, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. You are the queen of radical confidence. You are a badass. If anybody wants to buy your book, or I listen to the Audible version because I like your voice, how
Mm.
can they find your book and how can they buy the new copy?
Yeah, if you get it on pre-order the first week that it drops, actually we're offering a bunch of bonuses. So you can get an hour coaching that we've never released. It's me and my husband of the key things that we've used in our relationship to allow us to be together for 23 years. So you
Ooh,
get that for free. You also get 3 months of ad-free podcast audio for women of impact. And you also get a workbook that goes along with the book so you can start to implement. Like I'm always about like actually taking action. I don't want to just show up and motivate someone and then they go on with their life. Like I actually want to make that change. And so I've provided this workbook that goes along with the book. So if you want to get all of those
beautiful.
things for free, you can actually go to radicalconfidence.com right now. And if you get the book and you get all of those for free. And if you want to follow me, just follow me anywhere at Lisa Bilyeu.
There you go. There you have it, guys. Lisa is someone who takes what she learns and she's just sharing it with everyone. So while you can, get the book, get these amazing resources, learn for yourself how you can be in a 23-year long positive relationship. And to our listeners, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to She's Interesting. We appreciate your support. Remember to follow us on Instagram at She's Interesting Podcast, on TikTok, and don't forget to subscribe to our monthly newsletter.